I'm Melissa Shanahan, and this is the Velocity Work Podcast, episode number 57. This podcast is for attorneys who are running their own firms. We explore tactics, tools, and stories related to pushing past simply lawyering well and into building a successful firm. Working in your firm and working on your business are two very different things. This podcast focuses on the latter. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode. I am coming to you from Aspen, Colorado. Aspen is one of those places for me. It's like one of my favorite places in the United States where when I drive into Aspen, as I'm getting closer and you're getting more and more into the mountains just around Aspen, every cell in my body just buzzes. Like something about me comes alive when we're heading into Aspen. And I love all mountain towns. I love being in the mountains, the fresh air, the views, the rocky mountains, all of it. I really enjoy the mountains. But there's something about Aspen. Do you have a place like that? Is there something that popped up in your mind that's similar for you as Aspen is for me? I love it. First time I went there, I didn't even live in Colorado yet. I was still living in California. And I fell in love with it immediately. And ever since, I've gone back as much as I can. It's a further drive from Denver, though, so I don't get there nearly as much as I get to the other mountain towns. But when we can go, it's pretty fantastic. It's been 2 years since I've been there, so it just makes it all the sweeter. Okay, well, let's dive in to today's topic, which is accountability charts. Accountability charts is this interesting thing that most law firm owners that I meet have heard of and they know about, but they don't have one. And sometimes people think they're too small to have one, like a solo firm shouldn't have one. It's for small firms and up in terms of size. And that is not true. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today. So I wanted to cover the basics with accountability charts. And you have to know there is not a perfect, you're not going to create your perfect chart. Number one, because your business is going to evolve. And as your business and your firm evolves, so the accountability chart will have to, it will have to as well. So that's the first thing I want to say. And at the end, I'm going to give some other tips and warnings, I guess you could say, when you're dealing with this, things to keep top of mind as you sit down to work on this to help you get the final result much more quickly and easily. Well, let's start by talking about the difference between accountability charts and organizational charts. An organizational chart does a really good job of outlining, sort of shows all the boxes. And it tends to show who is in each seat. So it shows who reports to who. It gives employee names and titles. It represents a hierarchy. And so it can be helpful. I think organizational charts get this, people poo-poo them now because now we have accountability charts, which I do agree are much more functional. And we'll talk about that in a moment. But I got to tell you, there's a time and a place where you just need to know, a simple organizational chart can be very helpful. It can create a lot of clarity. But I think it falls short in that, I think it's a good start, but it doesn't give as much information as what is really useful for your firm, internally for your firm. So that's why I think accountability charts are great because they go a step further. So what they focus on is more the ownership of the work inside of the firm, which is very helpful because it creates a lot of clarity on who is responsible for what, not just who oversees that area, not just that, but more what is, in this area of your business, and we'll get more into this, but in this area of your business, what are all the responsibilities and who owns each of those things? It makes it very clear on who to go to for what and da-da-da-da. We'll get into all that. So it's cool because an accountability chart really just helps everybody have a very clear picture of exactly what's going on inside the firm, not just the hierarchy of the firm. And I really believe that there's this blend of both that is the sweet spot. So I can share more about that too. I should tell you, just so you know, I have some experience with these. I didn't just read about it and I'm going to spit it out to you. I have probably done over 250. I've facilitated. I don't create them. The owners create them for their business, but I have facilitated the creation of probably over 250 accountability charts. And so then, and more recently, because that's probably been over the span of 5-6 years now, but more recently, I've only worked with attorneys creating them for their firms. And it really isn't different from business to business. Of course, there's a difference in terms of the functions inside of your business are going to vary from the printer down the street, right? Like, of course, the functions are going to vary. But the process of creating your accountability chart is the same. I have done it for so many different kinds of businesses, and it is the same. And it's always a really great result in the end. So, I'm excited to be able to share some of this with you. This is something I work on with private clients during their retreats. As the first kickoff retreat we have, we create theirs because normally I have yet to work with, well, that's not true. There are some law firm owners that have had one, but they haven't looked at it in a while. No one is plugged into it. It's outdated. Things have changed since they created it. And so we have to revamp it. And usually pretty significantly revamp it. But most of the time I'm working with owner attorneys on this stuff. It's the first time actually creating one. And the sense of relief where you can actually hear them take a big breath or like let a sigh out, like, like it's like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. Because it's all out of their heads and it's all into this organized structure in front of them. And that's pretty cool. It creates a lot of clarity. So I asked some clients why they were so glad that they have an accountability chart, that they did the work of creating it and they keep it updated, and why is it so helpful or useful? And so this is what some of them had to say. One client wrote, accountability charts provide a structure and roadmap for the current and future functions of my firm. The accountability chart helps separate out roles and responsibilities without feelings or emotions. That is super key. I will talk more about that in a minute. The accountability chart is integral for any firm that's looking to get organized and level up. Amen to that. Another client made a couple of comments when I asked, but the gist was, we know whose job it is to do what, like to do X. There's never a question. So in what she was trying to really convey is that before they had the accountability chart, there were things in the firm that everybody kind of was supposed to take care of. And so then because everybody owned it, nobody owns it, which is a quote that you've probably heard before. So it really helped reduce a lot of that friction that happens, and it prevents things from falling through the cracks because there is someone who owns and is responsible for each thing that is supposed to happen in the firm. So it doesn't fall through the cracks because that person is very clear that, hey, it's mine, I've got this. And then also it's very clear to the firm, oh, she's got this. It creates a lot of clarity in that respect. And there's another client that wrote back to me when I asked for like just his snippets. And he said, my accountability chart helps me design the firm of my dreams. After I saw just how many seats I was filling, I was able to make a plan for which seats to get myself out of first. It's still a work in progress and it always will be, but my accountability chart helps me remove myself as the bottleneck so my team can perform at their highest level. So I thought that was really cool, but I did say, I wrote back to him and I said, anything about role clarity for the team, or it just doesn't feel as important for you? And he said, absolutely, LOL. And he has like a laughing face. I don't think anything I say will fit in everything I want to say. And so I was just going to let it go at that. And then he ended up writing back again and said, building a team was one of the first major projects in my business. Our accountability chart was critical in identifying the higher and lower level positions that needed to be filled. And now when we bring on new teammates, we know exactly what seat they fill and what their roles and responsibilities are. So that kind of gives you a clue about what some clients had to say who have done the work of, I've worked with them and facilitated the process of creating their accountability charts. And since then, they keep them up to date. They work hard on these and they've developed them further. there's a way potentially you guys get some access to see a couple of examples that have come out of my clients. There's an opportunity I can share with you at the end of the call about how to see examples of that. I wanted to share with you, that was really great to hear from clients. I haven't ever asked them those questions after we do it. I know how helpful it can be to a firm. And so once we get it put into place, I know they feel good about it. It's just, so I never ask like, hey, what specifically were the things that really made a difference for you having that accountability chart? So it was kind of cool to ask them and get those responses, because it does line up with what I would have imagined. I do have some other bullets that I've had the privilege of witnessing some of the other perks of having a great accountability chart where you're really dialed in, and it is a focus. It is a thing inside of your firm. It's not something that gets shoved in a drawer after you make it. No, it's on your wall, and everybody gets to see exactly what this looks like and who is doing what. One of the first things I'll say is that it helps compartmentalize things. It does help actually articulate the compartments of your business. And the reason this is important is because especially, when you get started, you start up your own firm and you get established and you keep going, it's very chaotic to get started up. Like you're just trying to go 0 to 1. But then once you get to 1, then it's time to really level up. And if it's still there's this chaotic sense that you're growing with that chaotic sense. And I talk a lot about it's important to take a breath, take a step back and reevaluate, like how do I grow this firm on your terms, not be a slave to the firm and to the growth that's happening. And having an accountability chart helps you see the business in front of you and sort of forces you to get clear about things where maybe you haven't been so clear on them. And so that's a beautiful gift. Okay, so another thing that ends up happening is, as you map out this structure of your business, it clarifies the needed structure for your business. And so it's almost like, we tend to just operate in a way that's been working, like we're building a business. And yes, it feels chaotic and maybe there's a better way, but we're doing all right. And when you actually map this out, it helps clarify the needs that you have. Like maybe there actually is another function inside of your business that you don't actually consider a function. Or another way to say it that people tend to like is a bucket. Like there's another bucket of your business that deserves its own someone to oversee it and someone to foster the growth of it and to track it and to make sure that it's healthy and going well. And so sometimes it's clumped in under something else and it deserves its own spot on your accountability chart. It becomes very clear. You can start to see that as you build out an accountability chart. Okay, and what I shared with you that a client had mentioned, that it really allows expectations to be set very clearly with your team members about what's expected of them. It's just spelled out in front of them what they own and what they tend to, right? Like it's their job. It's their responsibility. It's not that they can't ask for help from you. It's not that you guys can't work together on it, but it starts and stops with them. If something goes wrong with it, you're going to them. So that is very helpful. Along those lines, it provides a very clear path to ownership of responsibilities. And it also makes it easier to know exactly who to go to. So it's kind of all saying the same thing, but God, there's so much value there. To work with that kind of clarity is pretty incredible. The other thing that one of the clients had mentioned that I shared with you earlier was that it removes feelings from roles in your business. It removes feelings from the functions in your business. Facts, not feelings. We rely on written processes and systems and data and not feelings or emotions or desires. There is a time and a place for that. Reviews, for example, connecting with your team, fostering their own development, their own growth. It's not that you need to ignore how someone is feeling and their desires and what they want, but that is not, when it comes to your business, things need to run like a well-oiled machine. Well-oiled machines don't have feelings. So it kind of helps kick out or weed out any of the emotional charge that can happen around who owns what and things falling through the cracks because I thought she was going to do it. And, it just made sense that she would continue on and she would carry forward with that thing because that certain client there's all these reasons people have just decided that like, oh, she's got it, but they don't actually talk about it. So no one has it. And then tension builds. And then, so that's like one way that emotions can pop up. But the other way is just like, emotions, confusion is an emotion, and your team can be confused about certain things in the way that they run inside the business. This prevents that. Another way emotions come up is that someone wants opportunity, but they can't see in your firm exactly the path to be able to create opportunity for themselves. The chart helps with that. So there isn't room for emotion, and this helps cut out emotion, and everybody just gets on board with this accountability chart, accepts the responsibilities. You don't just throw it at somebody. They have to accept the responsibility and say, yes, I accept that, this role and responsibilities. And then you're good. They verbally committed, they're in, they understand the accountability chart. It's just a great thing. Okay. And then the last couple things I'll say that I just notice that come out of this that are for the good. They kind of go hand in hand, but it helps you to identify where systems and processes are needed. Because sometimes you'll have a bucket, like in your organizational chart, you'll have a box that's so heavy. There's so many responsibilities underneath that bucket. And so it's like, okay, wait a minute. We need to get more efficient here. Like if we're going to keep all of these responsibilities under this function of the business, like we're not going to break off and create a new bucket, because it's so heavy, which is a sign that maybe you do need an extra bucket beyond what you had originally thought or what you originally have planned out. But let's just say you see all these things and you know that whoever is really going to be responsible for that function in the business is going to be so spread thin because of how much there is to oversee. Well, the first thing that your mind should go to is not to hire someone new. That may be an option, but you don't start there. What you start with is taking a look at what are could systems and processes help with efficiency and streamlining in this area? And then we can give ourselves a bit more capacity before we decide to take on the investment of hiring that next person. So it's important to, it just kind of shows that will show up. If systems and processes are needed, a lot of times that will show up in the accountability chart. And the other thing that kind of goes along with this, it allows you to see what can be delegated much more clearly. And when you have that visibility, then you can free up your time, which, I mean, that's the point of delegation, right? You free up your time so that you can focus on things that your brain should be focusing on and nothing else other than that. Now, if you're a solo firm, I understand that you are wearing many hats in the business. That is the reality. But the sooner that you map out the different functions of your firm, then the sooner you can wear less and less hats inside of your firm. But as long as you're just like plowing through and doing it all and it's not mapped out, it's very difficult to see what you can actually delegate, because you may have an idea here and there like, oh, I could delegate, for someone to do this piece for me or someone to do this piece for me. Like as you're doing it, you think of it, but there's nothing cohesive about what you're delegating. And that's okay. That's not the end of the world. Delegation is just important, period. But you will have more success with delegation and getting your time back if there's this cohesive sense to the things that you are delegating. And an accountability chart makes it very easy to see what's possible with delegation. Okay, so now let's move into talking about how to make one. I'm going to give you some basics. And I want you to play around with these. Don't take this too seriously. And that'll be one of my tips at the end of the show we'll talk about. But the first thing is to, you know what an organizational chart looks like. And so you know that, there's a box on top. Sometimes there's a box below it. And then there's like a row of boxes below that. Yours does not have to look like that. It can. But what you need to do is to sit down with like a blank sheet of paper and your brain, and you're going to carve out time to think about your firm and the different functions that exist inside of your firm, the different departments, so to speak, or the different buckets of your firm. And so whatever word resonates the most, but you want to sit down and sort of list those out. what is for sure is that there's always going to be the box at the top. There has to be a leader, a driver of the vision of the firm, of pushing things and driving things forward for the business. That top box is always going to exist. Some people call it the CEO. Some people call it the visionary. It doesn't really matter what you call it. There are specific responsibilities of that top box, and I can share those with you. But you'll need that top box for like, who is driving this firm forward in a meaningful way and in a very intentional way. Okay, so then the other so that has to be a function in your business. That is a seat. If you aren't recognizing that at the moment, this will be a great time to start. The other thing is the other functions that you would think of. Most of the time, traditionally in a business, it's one box, one function is sales and marketing. Another box is operations, and the other box is finance or admin. And so those are like at its most basic. That's what every business has, a version of that. And for law firms, what that tends to look like is marketing. Yes, that's a bucket. That's a function. And then operations is sort of like your version in a law firm of operations is client services, active cases, active clients. And then even sometimes within that, depending on your firm, that's split into two boxes. Like, so you have a box that says client services, maybe something else resonates better for you in terms of the name of that function, the name of that bucket. But then below that, then you might have litigation, could be one box, and then the other could be pre-suit, for example. Or so you figure out, you sit down and think through, what are the buckets of my firm? What are the main functions inside of my firm? And then the last one, for sure, there's an admin box. Probably. I'm saying for sure. I'm telling you, just screw the rules with this. You need to come up with what makes sense for your firm. And that's what people don't do, that it makes it so hard to create your accountability chart, is you look at someone else's and you just fit into it. You try to make that plug. You try to plug that, what you see, into your accountability chart, and it might not be what's best for you. That's why it's important to sit down with a blank sheet of paper first. Use your brain about your firm first, and where you get stuck or where you need some inspiration after you've done that exercise, then go out, take a look, see what other people have done, and see if something clicks that sort of will match up with how you've already been thinking about it. That's the better way to do it. So you want to think through the functions of your firm, and then once you do that, so you have the visionary or the CEO box on top. We already identified that. And then there's these buckets below that. So in its most simplest form, let's just say it's marketing, client services, and admin. So then you have to think about, let me say one more thing here. What's also very important as you're thinking through this is that your mind will want to go to the people that you have working in your firm and the roles that they play. You will sort of lean on that to create your accountability chart. And I want to steer you away from that, because you cannot create a chart based on the roles of the people you have. You need to create the chart based on what the business needs. And so leave people out of it. Leave names out of it. And if you're worried when I say that like, oh, well, I don't know where Susie fits into this, then okay, well, we'll get there. We'll figure that out in a minute. But you can't make a role for Susie if your business doesn't actually need that function in it. Like I've seen that so often. So just create buckets, create boxes in your chart for what your firm needs in terms of the main functions in your firm, the main buckets in your firm, the main departments in your firm. So one of those three words will probably resonate and get the point across. But leave people out of it at this point. The next thing you're going to do is look at the main, for each function, for each box that you've created, you are going to think about what are the main responsibilities, like 1 to 5 main responsibilities inside of the function of that business. And what are the main things that are just the most important things, the most important responsibilities that happen or are taken care of or are carried out within that department, within that bucket, within that function of your business. once you have listed for each bucket just the main responsibilities, like if nothing else, like the most important things, and you kind of list some bullets underneath each box. Once you've done that for each box, then the next thing I would do is to go back and start with one box. So admin, for example, start there, and I would list every responsibility, even if it's not the most important ones, because you've already listed those in some bullets right underneath the box. But under that, I would list every responsibility of that department, of that function in the business, what falls under admin in that function. And so list it all out. You may have a list of 30 to 40 things. I have no idea. It depends on your firm, and it varies from firm to firm when I'm facilitating this as well. But list every responsibility out that you can think of. Payroll, transfers, deposits, answering the phones. Like, I don't know, right? Like you billing, for example. So what are all the admin tasks that you can think of and put them under the admin function, the admin box? So you do that for each box. So now you've got your chart, you've got your boxes set up, and you have the main responsibilities listed under each box, the most important responsibilities listed under each box, 1 to 5. And then the rest of it, all the rest of the responsibilities go under that box as well. The next step at that point is to look at your chart and see if anything is missing. Are you missing anything here? Does something not feel quite right? Do you need to break one box into 2 boxes? It's too much, too heavy for one sort of function in the business. Does it need to break off so that it's clearer, more concise, and more manageable for whoever is going to be filling the role for those boxes? So once you kind of look at it and you're like, you know what, this is my business. This feels good. This is my business. Then the next thing that you want to do is to think of, like, sort of in your mind, nominate who you think should sit in each seat. Who should be in each box? And if you're a solo, you may be in all the boxes right now. Like, that's the option, right? But if you have a team, you really think about, okay, for this box, who is the best fit that I have to oversee and manage all of these things and own all of these things that are listed underneath? The majority of them, right? Like, it's not that they can't get help. They'll be delegating that, but it's like, who is going to run this? And, it starts and stops with them in terms of that's who I'm going to go to when something's not going well or whatever. So think about the team member that you have. If you don't have one, that's okay. No name goes in that box yet. Maybe yours, right? Somebody's got to take care of it. But if you can't think of someone that you want in that seat, then that's okay. You can even put a question mark in the box, like, I don't know who yet. Now, if you do think of someone, if you do have someone in your firm where you're like, yep, this is their box, this is who I want in the seat, then your job is to make sure that you share this chart with that person and you show them, like, even if it's stuff they've already been doing, it doesn't matter. You show them, like, hey, I built this out to provide a lot of clarity inside of our firm. I would love for you to take a look at this bucket. You're already doing many things here, but I really want to make this more official in terms of ownership of these responsibilities that I have listed out here. And so you will be overseeing this. Is that something that do you want to do this? And you guys may have heard of EOS does Get It, Want It. It's GWC, Get It, Want It, Have the Capacity for It. It's that conversation that you need to have with them. Because they need, you may elect them, but they need to say yes to it, because then it means they're all in instead of you just placing it on them. That doesn't usually turn out well. So when you ask them, do you want this role? Let them answer honestly. And then, do you think you get it? Like, do you understand what it takes to really work this role and own this role? And give them a chance to respond. And then the last one is, do you have capacity to handle all of this? And then give them a chance to respond. And you can work with them on their answers. If there is doubt, though, like, there have been times where, the team is sitting in the room and I will ask, like, someone will nominate a name to go in one of the boxes and that person's in the room. And I'll look at that person and I'll say, okay, great. Susie, do you want this role. And there have been more times than I can count where they're just silent or they start crying. And guys too. So I'm using the name Susie, but this is not this happens across the board. And there'll be tears and it's like, okay. I mean, they don't want it. There's reasons they don't want it. And it comes with the responsibility. There are certain people in your firm that want to punch a clock. I recommend really working hard to find the people that's not what they care about. They don't just want to show up and go home. That is tough though. And sometimes you're going to have really great workers that's just what they want, right? And if you're trying to put someone like that in this seat, this is one of the reasons why it's important. They need to say, yes, I want that. Yes, I have the capacity for it. And yes, I get it. I get what it takes. I may not be perfect. I may need your guidance. I may need your mentorship, but I'm in. That is what you want for this role. If you sense hesitancy, you need to dig into that. And you need to not just give them the role when you sense hesitancy. That's crazy. That's like magical thinking. They're giving you all the nonverbal signs. Even if they're saying yes, they're giving you a bunch of nonverbal signs that they're not really in. There's a lot of hesitation. Don't give them that role. That's going to burn your firm. So you really want them to take the role. And I understand that. But as bad as you want them to take it, you just got to take a breath, meet them where they are, and figure out if you actually need to find somebody else for that role or not. So I'm going through this really quickly. And I know there's some nuances to this, like when I'm actually facilitating, but I'm trying to give you the gist and not give you every little nitty-gritty detail on this, because truthfully, this is about progress, not perfection. And you're never going to create a perfect accountability chart that's just you have to be married to it. No, your business is a living, breathing entity. It's going to grow. It's going to shape differently over time. And you're going to have to keep coming back and adjusting for that on this accountability chart. So what I don't want is to give you guys these specific instructions and for you to feel like there's a way to fail at this. The only way you can fail at creating this is I'm going to give some tips in a minute that'll help keep you on track. But generally speaking, the only way you can fail at this is if you don't do a thorough job of sitting down and using your own brain for what boxes your firm needs. Don't look at other people's boxes. I want you to scratch it. I want you to just say, when you're sitting down for yourself, you're the owner, you're the visionary, you're the CEO, whatever. You're the person who's going to drive this firm forward. Do not rely on others to give you all the answers. This is your chance to sit down and come up with your own answers for your firm. And so when you sit down, you think through the functions and the roles. That if you do that, you're on a good path. You know your firm better than anyone else on this planet. I don't care if you have a mentor that has a huge firm that's built it and knows what they're talking about. Of course they know what they're talking about. Of course they have a lot of experience, but they don't know your firm. And from business to business, each business is unique, not just law firms. Every small business is unique in that the owner has a visibility or has this desire or has this dream for what they want to create. And if you listen to other people too much, it won't happen. So the only way you're going to screw this up is if you go get a blueprint, basically. And even then, it feels strong to say you're going to screw it up, but it's just not going to be yours. It's not going to be original, which means it's not going to work that well in the long term. So sit down and think for yourself and be willing to be a little confused, be willing to not know exactly how to do it, but be willing to put something into place that feels like you're definitely on the right track. And then you can evolve it as time goes on. You're not going to screw anything up in your business. Don't be afraid of that. A lot of clarity will come with doing this. So, okay, tips I have for you. The tips I have for you is the first and foremost, don't add names until the very end. Once your accountability chart is done, the last thing you do is write someone's name in the bucket that they're going to own. And then below that, with all the responsibilities that you wrote right below each box, what I work with people to do is once it's all built out and we have the names of who's in each seat, who's in each box and going to have ownership and they've accepted ownership, then you go down to all those tasks and responsibilities that are below it and you put a name next to each one of those. And oftentimes the person whose name is in the box is also going to be next to many of those responsibilities below, but maybe they have someone that works in the firm and helps them, right? So maybe there's an assistant that takes a chunk of those responsibilities. And so next to each responsibility below, put the person's name who owns each small responsibility, and that creates a ton of clarity as well. So, but you just don't do it until the very last thing. It's the very last piece of creating an accountability chart. The other tip I have is make sure that in every box, every seat, which is also what I was referring to earlier as every function or department or, I can't remember what else I called it, but you know what I'm saying. In that box, you can only have one person's name. Two names can't be in the same seat, so to speak. That causes problems and a lack of clarity. So one person goes in there. It does not mean that person can't get help. It does not mean that person doesn't have a place to delegate or a team, but it means that they are responsible for how for the success of that department, so to speak, or those functions and responsibilities and tasks. They're responsible for overseeing it and for managing it and doing so in a great way. The next thing I want to say is be lighthearted in your approach to this. This isn't easy. I mean, like I told you a minute ago, I have facilitated so many of these, and it always takes a couple of hours at minimum if it's the first time that someone's coming up with it. And, I use those huge Post-its, sometimes a big whiteboard, but those huge Post-its you write on, I'll start on one. And then it's like, we get into it. And it's like, it's not, the owners will say, it's not quite right. I think that needs to be split into two or whatever. Okay. Toss that, start over with the most up-to-date version that they have in their heads. I write that out. And then it's like, that might not be right either. So we scratch that and we go back to the drawing board. So even in all the years that I have facilitated these, it's just never it's just never a cakewalk. It's messy. It's tough. There's drafts. And you got to get in there, dig in, play with it. But the more lighthearted you are with it, the better it is for, the outcome will be better. When you get really constricted and so serious and this has to be perfect, that is when you will cap yourself. You will not be able to see possibilities. You will stick within the standard. You will stick within the status quo. You will want to look at other people's examples because you want to get it right. There is no right way to do this. I really, really want you to know that. There's no perfect way to do it. Again, the only way you can fail is if you just don't put the mental energy and effort in for you and for your firm. And so don't worry about that. But stay lighthearted. That's the best way to get results, is just be lighthearted. And let's see if I have anything else I wrote down for advice. Kind of along those lines, just playing around with it. If you're not sure, once you kind of create your draft, if you're a little iffy, remember that you can have like draft A and draft B, and they're a little bit different, and sit with those for 2 to 4 weeks and just see, observe your firm. Is that actually how things are flowing? Is it how you want things to flow? Which one fits your firm and what you want for your firm? Which one fits better? And then you can sort of decide and narrow down. So don't feel like you have to do this in one sitting and it's done. Really let this roll around in your brain. Do the work, get some drafts, and then let it roll around in your brain, and then see what you want to revise or which one you want to pick, et cetera, et cetera. And the last piece I'll say is, once you have one that you feel really good about and it feels complete and it feels like your firm and it feels like something you can at least get yourself to the next level with, is that structure that you put into place, those roles and responsibilities that you have down, and there's clarity around who is doing what, and the structure feels good. Get it printed, professionally printed on a big paper, and hang it somewhere universally. If you are virtual, there's still opportunities to make sure it's a regular piece of the culture is that this is a piece of the culture. And so maybe if you have monthly meetings or quarterly meetings, this has gone over and you guys can talk about, oh, has anything changed here? Do we need, is someone left? Is someone new come in? And if someone new has come in because you had this accountability chart, you already knew exactly the roles they were going to have. How is that going? But make it a piece of the conversation so that it's front and center and everybody really abides by that. It's going to make your life so much easier if you keep it a part of the culture. And so if you do have a physical office, print that on a nice piece of paper and hang it up and be proud of that. Be proud. That is your firm. And when you look at it, really take a step back and take a breath and acknowledge that you built that. You built that. There's all the things that are going on, all the things that are happening inside that you just mapped out. Pat yourself on the back, because people don't always get here and you're doing it. And now you've mapped it out and you can be really proud of that. And it provides a lot of clarity and will allow you to get to the next level much more easily and in a much more streamlined way, in a much more efficient way, and with more ease and more flow. Okay, everyone, I hope that's helpful. I got to say, if you are interested in this, I'm doing a workshop in October for participants of the monthly sprint, the October sprint. So if you want to, or if you've been thinking about joining that sprint, this may be a good tipping point for you, because this is going to be a really cool workshop where I'm going to have worksheets and you're basically going to walk away with at least a draft for yourself, maybe 2 drafts. And I'm also going to have a couple clients see who's willing to provide their accountability charts so you can see, and I want to show you those after you've worked on yours. But after you've worked on yours, I'll show you some of what they've come up with and what's worked for them. And they do not look traditional. I'll tell you that right now. And it's the best. It's the best because it fits their firm and where they want to go, which is great. So if you are interested in joining that workshop for creating your own accountability chart in October, go to velocitywork.com/mastery. And that's where you can see the details. If you want to join the October sprint, then this will be a piece of that sprint. There's also a bonus workshop we just landed and nailed down. Joey Vitale is going to do a workshop specifically on all things delegation to VAs for lawyers. He has a really tight process at this point, and he's going to share his stuff, which is pretty cool. So that's another one, just a bonus. So yeah, hopefully I get to work with some of you in October for the sprint, velocitywork.com/mastery. But you definitely have a lot of information to run with on your own today. If you want to take it to the next level and you want to get a little more nuts and boltsy with it, join me in October. Have a wonderful week, everyone. I will see you here next Tuesday. Hi guys, it's me again. Thank you so much for listening. If you like this podcast, you probably understand that growth requires results, not just staying active. If you want to learn how to build your days around getting results, I'll show you how in this zero fluff class that I teach. Go to velocitywork.com/results for registration information. I cannot wait to see you there. If you want to hang out with us on social, come on over to Instagram. Our handle is velocity.work. And on Facebook, it's facebook.com/meetvelocitywork. Cheers, my friends, to real growth and a great life. Show notes from this episode can be found at velocitywork.com/podcast.